through other people's eyes. Now, empathy is a quality of character that can change the world.
Unites people. Armies, gold, flags, stories. There's nothing in the world more powerful than a good story. Nothing can stop it.
If you want to stand out from everybody else, you need to get into storytelling.
Draw a different frame around the same set of circumstances and new pathways come into view.
Welcome to Artefact Live with me, Scott MacArthur, where we look at the art and science of story. We don't care who you are, whether you're a bricklayer, a professor or a speaker, all we care about is you being a good storyteller.
Thank God the drummers arrived.
It's time to realise that facts tell, but it's stories that sell.
Get me some nasty and get it now or someone's getting shot.
And that's a niche of a niche of a niche of a niche of a 1,000 comments.
Selling a hemorrhoid cream to someone who's got hemorrhoids.
Got a whip.
I was born into a deep contradiction.
This stuff's magic.
Oh, that's so clever.
Good afternoon and welcome to Artefact Live with me, Scott MacArthur. Afternoon. I've never said that introducing the show before. That's quite interesting. We've changed the time of the show because people said that because more and more people are getting back to normal, they'd like to have the show at lunchtime so they can tune in. So here's hoping some of you managed to tune in today for this little special show about the 50th episode of Artefact. Now, I'm a huge smile on my face today because I can't believe I got to 50. I couldn't believe I got to 10, but I've got to 50. And to help me think about that and to, ponder what's been happening for the last year, I've got one of my friends and favourite guests on the show with me today, Tom Stanhope, and I'll have Tom on in a sec. And the reason I asked Tom along is because increasingly it's very noticeable that there aren't many people doing what Tom and I are doing, and that is going live. And Tom's whole business is around helping people go live. So, well, there's a natural link there. But we're also both now been through the mill, if you like, for 12 months on storytelling. So I'll put Tom on in a minute and we can have a chat about it. But just before I do that, I have to say I've been really touched by the feedback I've had in the last couple of weeks about the show and where it's going and what we've done over the last year. It's not going to be static. I've got some ideas about changing the show, about developing it. And its focus has may become more Facebook than LinkedIn based, but Tom and I will discuss that shortly. But nevertheless, I do really appreciate it, and it feels almost surreal to have done so many shows. I think I've now broadcast for 360 hours of live broadcasting with the storytelling and the music thing that I do. So I just can't believe it. But anyway, so I'm going to put Tom on. I hope you're clothed and decent, Tom. Yes, he is. There he is.
Very rarely.
Hiya, Tom. Well, at least you're clothed. You might not be decent, but at least you're clothed.
Well,
Cheers.
Thank God for that. I don't think there's anyone. People.
I'm sure weird. I'm sure weird things happen on LinkedIn and other places, mate. But let's not go there. Actually, we might go there because there is something about audiences at the moment. It's weird. So Tom, you've been on the show before, but would you mind introducing yourself to my viewers, please? I'd really appreciate it, mate.
Thank you, Scott. Well, my name is Tom Stanhope, and in the world of video for 20 years now, over 20 years. And in that time, I have seen a huge shift where it has become a much more it's something that we can all, a lot of business aren't using it half as would be. And I think a lot of people, I know a lot of people are missing on that kind of video can deliver up. So it's been a sort of mission over the last kind of, I guess the last 2.5, 3 years to really kind of get people thinking about video, both live and pre-recorded, as a tool for business growth. And I've been on that journey myself. I spent during that time, I've been the camera, in front of the camera with some really interesting, and helping other people take that step too. So that's really what I'm all about.
Yes, and it's been. I mean, I've obviously joined you on that journey, and we tune into each other's shows, support each other, etc., etc. What do you think has been the most challenging part of it in the last 12 months, Tom? What's been the part of what you're doing now that's really been tough?
So I think you have to go in sort of early 2020. I did my last job, kind of real life job. I'm in February, late February, early March 2020, where I went to a big conference in London and was filming it, and promptly caught COVID right as many people did from that. I think it must have been March. It was right on that sort of cusp where everyone's going, I wonder what we should do. And everyone's going, down, shut everything down. And so I sort of went on to that going, well, I've got to do it because, it's money in the bank. And so basically my business disappeared overnight, as you can will chime with you as well. Any speakers out there and anybody, anything that involved face-to-face. So a whole kind of slice of my business completely disappeared. Now, I had been toying with the idea more into the online through other work I've been doing. But what that enforced shift meant is that I had to sort of really double down on that. Now, I'd started ARTEFACTLive just before, sort of end of 2019, and really had to sort of double down on that. I spent some time learning from people who were doing this already, and modeling off what they were doing and investing and crossing my fingers and hoping that it would all work out. So the difficult bit has been sort of shift from doing things to the way of doing things. I'm happy that 90% of my business is now online.
Yes.
Previously, it was entirely reliant on that sort of one-on-one film and video production work.
Yes.
So the hard part has been a shift in the way I do things. So 20 odd years is a long time doing something, and you build up all sorts of habits and preconceptions about how you do things, and so certainly it's just been about breaking old habits and building new ones, and actually that consistency of just up week in, week out, doing your lives, even though sometimes you might feel like it, and building that rapport and that audience. There are those days you think, actually, the last thing I want to do is to see go live, but you do it because it's actually an important part of. It's like going to the gym. You do it, and you always feel better for it.
Yeah.
So
I think
that is one of the big part.
I think the folks, you may notice that Tom's video is a little bit chunky because one of the classic things that happens, doesn't it, Tom? when you're going live, Tom's internet provider has decided to go down today. So we've got the API into Facebook not working, and we've got the internet at Tom's end not working, which is just typical. But I think that was probably one of the things, Tom, that I found the hardest. Was, I mean, a lot of the speaking community went for tech. They all went and spent a fortune on tech. No, I didn't. I just started broadcasting, and I think it was probably because, well, I couldn't justify, I couldn't justify spending money on a proper studio or a fancy camera or anything. And I know you had that, but I did 46 episodes of this show just using my webcam. I'm not using a webcam now. I've upgraded now, but it's I think you've got to.
Oh dear.
I see that. It's difficult to catch what Tom is saying. You may want to come in and back out again, Tom. Maybe that'll help. I don't know.
I will leave for a sec, come back in. Hang on.
Okay, and I'll just talk about and but this is the sort of thing that happens, folks. I mean, it was the same if you tuned in last week. Sometimes people have these difficult experiences online, and you've just got to continue. You just got to keep going because it's part of the game. And it's funny because, and I'm making this up, but I suspect there's a correlation between broadcast hours and the amount of money you spend on your equipment, and it's the opposite to what you might think. There's an awful lot of people who have spent literally thousands and thousands of pounds and never do any broadcasting. I don't know what they're doing with it, but they don't. So that, I think that wasn't hard for me because I just decided that I couldn't justify it, so therefore I would work with what I had. And it's only when a client paid for this camera you're looking at now that I upgraded, because he wanted me to have HD rather than the webcam. It's a good webcam, but nevertheless he wanted it a bit better quality when I was making films for him. So he paid for the camera. So great. But I think that was not hard for me. It was a sort of, better not spend money. But the other thing, and I'll ask Tom about this when he comes back, but the other thing that I found difficult about all of this, I'm not a storyteller specialist. It's not. I mean, I do tell stories, but it's not the thing that I'm known for. I mean, I speak about the future of work. I speak about technology and disruptive technologies and, biology and science and poetry. And I sat down with myself and I thought, well, what is the subject that I could talk about that people would enjoy, that I could help them with it, that, I've got something to say. And I thought, well, people tell me I'm a good storyteller. Maybe I should do a show about storytelling. And that's how this came about. It definitely wasn't because it was my core business. And I think that is something that a lot of people have got lost with, because if I try to do, and I could do a live broadcast about the future of work. And actually I was very close to doing that. Because there is a market for that. I know there is a market for it, but the decision that I took was that I would like the show not to be a selling show, because I think a lot of people set up their shows just to sell. I didn't do that because, and you'll notice I very rarely try and sell anything. I mean, occasionally I'll mention a live event, or I'll mention something I'm doing somewhere at a gig or something, but I don't think it's the purpose of this for me. And a lot of the internet guys, a lot of the online guys, are sniff at it, say, well, you should be collecting emails, you should be bombarding people with options, you should be doing all. And I decided I didn't want to do that, because I don't know if it's got integrity, or at least that's not fair, because I mean, there's people that do it very well and and do have high integrity. But for me, I didn't want to do it. So, and if you look, and I'll ask Tom about this, he's back. Let's see if we can get him back. Tom, I'm just talking about why I chose storytelling as my niche. And actually, your picture's a lot better. It looks as if that might have worked, mate. Whatever you did.
Oh well, let's see if it sustains.
Yeah. So why is it that you chose to do? I mean, I guess it's quite natural because you were a filmmaker anyway. And that world, like the speaking world, collapsed. But was the only option for you to talk about how to make video online easily or broadcast? Was that the only option, or was there other options you were thinking about?
I think for me it was the one that made the most sense, because it was a very easy fit.
Right.
And I liked the fact that, because I've been teaching people to make their own videos for years, a lot of that 20 years, I've always run some kind of of kind of education aspect to my business. So
Yeah.
it made really good sense to step into that, just simply because I'd sort of got the whole thing structured out anyway.
Yes. Right. Okay.
So whilst there were other areas that I guess we could have looked at, the natural kind of the ease of it was very appealing. I'm fundamentally, somebody who will, if given half the chance, take part of least resistance, because I don't mind making things too difficult for myself. It was difficult enough at the time anyway. So, okay, what can I do that's quick and easy, that will actually, and I've got 20 years of experience of making films, and it made good sense. So teaching people as I say, the four different. So you've got. It was interesting what you were saying about the tech just before I had to go and reboot. That is a absolutely classic thing where people just will go, oh, I need the perfect setup, and use that as a way to stop themselves actually doing anything about it. Whereas actually the reality is most of us are carrying around a perfectly adequate go live tool in our pockets in the form of our phones. And if you've got some books or some Lego you can prop it up on, then you can start connecting with your audience. And it doesn't need to be absolutely perfect. I mean, I've got to, just by the nature of what I'm doing, have a setup which is easy to use but also looks half decent. So but like you said, I had a certain amount of the kit beforehand. So yes, it felt like an easy step for me to take to go into that space. There wasn't any sort of there weren't many great debates at home going kind of, what are we going to do? It was kind of, well, obviously people want to learn how to use video, and also at the time there was actually quite a demand for it. Because people all of a sudden were being chucked into this world where they had to be using video. So it felt like a really natural, easy step. Not an easy one, but a natural one, straightforward step compared to what I could have made things work for myself.
I mean, the other thing that I know has occupied you as well, but it certainly occupied me, was I think at the beginning. Let's talk about LinkedIn, and I know you don't have LinkedIn Live yet, do you?
Really annoying.
It's utterly ridiculous. I mean, I think LinkedIn. I think they're pissing about. Excuse me for swearing, but because they started LinkedIn Stories as a response to other platforms. That's gone. They've taken it down this week. It's gone. They said that LinkedIn Live would be, they'd put a load of effort behind it. If you look at the LinkedIn Live environment, it's nearly all people who are talking about LinkedIn. And it's bonkers. And and I spoke to them about it, and I said, look, what is going on? Where is all this growth of video? And it's just not there. There is a lot of it, and this is a personal opinion. People don't need to agree with me, but that's what I'm seeing. I mean, I'm seeing a lot of personal posts about people's traumas, and but apart from that, it's all about LinkedIn. And I don't know if LinkedIn are taking it seriously, Tom. And I know, well, Facebook are, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But the difference between the professional platform and the social platform is actually quite surprising to me. I don't know if you won't have experienced it because you can't even get bloody access, which is beyond me, But have you? What are your thoughts on it, apart from being hacked off that you can't get access? I think Tom has frozen again. Hold on, I'll let him know. Yeah, he's gone. Oh, he's back. There you go. You're back again, Tom.
So I think this illustrates a great point about the tech, doesn't it? I think let's use it as a learning point, shall we? So, so the one thing that people really get upset about going live is the worry that things are going to go wrong. And the truth is, live is inherently risky.
Oh,
you have to sort of accept that and roll with it. So there we go. I am both accepting and rolling with it. I'm sorry it's happening on your show, Scott.
Typical.
Can't get that. I'm sorry.
I'm going to come onto your show and I'm going to do all sorts of weird things.
Yeah, please do. Just freezing. Yeah.
So LinkedIn, what do you think about what's happening on LinkedIn at the moment?
It drives me nuts, really, because I
Yeah.
keep saying to them. So I went onto Twitter and ended up having a conversation with their help Twitter account. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we'll get you on LinkedIn." I was like, if I have access to it, I will be going live there 2 or 3 times a week, adding value to the platform. And for me, it's a really easy, because in terms of audience development, it makes really good sense because because I work, so I predominantly work with people, sort of mostly it's solo entrepreneurs, people who are speakers, coaches, trainers, kind of experts, sort of solo experts. But also we do a lot of work with kind of with sort of the small and medium end of the SME kind of size of businesses that are big enough to invest in kind of sort of a marketing person, but don't necessarily want, they want to be building skills in to that person's kind of working life. So I'll often go in and help people create content, but also help train up members of their marketing team for them to become content creators themselves. And so LinkedIn, frustrating, LinkedIn would be a great platform for me to be live on, because I can deliver value and there's a good audience there. But can I get them to give me LinkedIn Live? I can't. So from a personal point of view, I look at it and go, it's really frustrating, because I know it'd be great. But also, it doesn't. Just the infrastructure of going live on LinkedIn is nowhere near as kind of developed as the likes of Facebook, which is quite annoying in its own right in certain ways. But you kind of, like I say, I want to make things easy for myself, and currently LinkedIn does not feel like it's making it easy. And I would rather put my effort into platforms where I know that it's a relatively easy kind of piece of work to do. So my attention at the moment is actually, I'm kind of, I feel like I've got Facebook licked. I've got a good audience on there. We've got the group. I'm using it to sort of to generate work and to find people that I like working with. Next platform I want to turn my attention to is YouTube, because I've always had a YouTube channel, but I've always felt like it's been the sort of the unloved stepchild. And
I think platforms. YouTube is interesting because, again, and I'm speaking from the business perspective here rather than the just pure storytelling. There are very few people on YouTube doing business related YouTube channels. Very, very few. And
it's interesting, isn't it?
It's fascinating, and I mean, in the storytelling space, there's not a handful. Tom,
you think it's going to be absolutely rammed,
packed,
and you think the assumption that a lot of people make is, it must be overdone. But actually, there's a lot of, because it's a relatively complicated platform, and a lot because so. You think of YouTube as a library, as opposed to that kind of ephemeral feed style kind of experience you get from LinkedIn and Facebook and those kind of places. It's very difficult to find old video content on Facebook compared to finding it on YouTube. So there's already a slightly different mindset you've got to have with it. And whilst it is good for streaming and all that kind of stuff, it really shines when it's kind of when you got the pre-recorded content on there. I think for business owners, because it's that top of funnel stuff. If you're answering questions that people have, it's a way people can. If you're all optimized correctly, it's a way into your world.
Yes.
Yeah.
One of the things that I know we giggle about this, but one of the platforms that and someone's saying there are other platforms. Absolutely. One of the other platforms, well, the biggest broadcasting platform on the planet is Twitch.
Yeah.
And there just isn't a business community there yet. I have a feeling it might be the one that will surprise a lot of people, Tom, because I mean, I know, I think Andy's watching just now, what my friend I do the music show with, and he comes in from Twitch.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing platform.
Yeah.
It tends to be robust. It doesn't have all the copyright nonsense that, I mean, the situation with Facebook sometimes with copyright is getting absolutely ridiculous, to be honest. I mean, it is getting stupid. And you've got, like, on YouTube, you've got, you know, in like, for example, in the music world, you've got multi-million membership music sites that can't play the Eagles because the Eagles have got 80 people, you know, on the internet looking for people using their content without paying them 50 pence or something, you know. There is a change coming, you know. Don Henley, I'm sorry, mate, you're knackered. It's not going to continue the way you think it is. There is a change coming, and I think maybe Twitch could be it, Tom.
I like it.
That's maybe a little bit controversial, but I think it could be.
I like Twitch. I mean, I stream there just as a matter of, because when I'm sort of going live multi-streaming, I'll always put a channel out on Twitch, and there are, and it's so my son will occasionally hijack it and stream some games that he's playing on there. So my Twitch content is a real it's a real mixed bag. I can tell
it really is. So if you watch them broadcasting though, Tom, I mean, my goodness, the quality.
God, well, this is a really interesting thing. There's people on there who are treating, for whom it is their primary business, and so whilst, you know, as the comment says, no businesses here. Yeah, I think there's a whole bunch of people who are 100% businesses, but just their business is
games,
Twitch.
Yeah.
And we can learn a lot as kind of people who are interested in broadcasting from looking at the sort of the quality and the way a lot of these kind of these people are doing it, because they do it so well.
Yes.
And whilst their audience is different to the sort of the business audience, their principles the same. And what they know is that they really, really, really know how to serve their audience, because they are giving a wonderful, a lot of them are giving a really great experience, a really experience to their kind of their audience. I mean, I have been half considering sort of mixing the two, mixing games and business together, because, you know, I'm not averse to a game or two myself. It's something which I remember listening to a guy called Neil Patel speaking about something they do, and so he does a marketing and games thing where he'll get on there and sort of play games and talk about business stuff. So I think that, you know, if you can find people who are in your audience on that platform who are, but in where that sort of that Venn diagram, that intersection of gamers who like business or business people who like games, you know, it's all got to come from the audience at the start. You know, if you can find those people who are interested, then you can serve them.
Let's come back to the audience, because I'd like to talk about Topic Mojo and some other things that you and I both use about the audience. But before we do that, another thing that I initially was slightly confused by, this was, again, it was LinkedIn driven. It was, you had to use Restream or you had to use StreamYard, which is a proprietary software that you then beam into LinkedIn. And we are currently broadcasting on Restream. What do you think of Restream and StreamYard as somewhere? I'll tell you, I'll explain it first, and then we can have a chat. What this allows you to do is, it allows you, right now, Tom and I are broadcasting into about 10 different places, which is multiple Facebook groups, YouTube channels, LinkedIn, Twitter, Twitch, etc., etc. It's gone all over the place. And Restream, I think, quite easily allows you to do that. I mean, it is quite straightforward, to be honest. It then gives you an online studio, which is what Tom and I can see, that we can, you know, I can control it. It's how I can put, you know, comments on the screen. They call these lower thirds. I can do this quite seamlessly. We can run videos, as you know. and do lots of other things. And they keep in, like things like doing like this, where Tom's in the, they call this picture in picture. This sort of thing used to be quite complicated, and you had to use software like OBS, etc., to do any of this stuff. But now I can't see the point, Tom. I don't know how you feel about it. I can't see the point of OBS now. Just can't see the point of it.
I mean, it's free.
Yeah, it's free, and this isn't free. Yeah, no. But
it's free, and it's sort of, I don't know. I never got on with it. I was like, because we could do this, but like you say, there is something to be said for the simplicity of you pay your money, and what you do is you get a very slick interface that is easy to use. Yeah. So look, having said that, I've recently moved over from StreamYard to Restream, as I've been having really inconsistent stream quality on StreamYard. I suspect it'll get resolved, but it's useful for me to know how to use all these different platforms. Just simply because it's, if I get asked the question, I can sort of answer.
They're very similar, though, aren't they? I mean, they look very similar. Even in the studios, quite similar.
Yeah. There's not a lot of difference between them.
The thing, though, that I will say to the audience, that if anyone's thinking about going and doing live work using StreamYard or Restream, don't expect Restream to know everything, because they don't. It's a bunch of kids. I mean, it's a bunch of kids. And so they're gradually, and I'm sure the people at the top aren't kids, but well, maybe they are, but the platform itself is emergent. And what happens, it's quite funny. I don't know if you've noticed this, Tom, since you started using it. Restream don't announce updates. Well, they do, but they announce them late. They announce them like 3 weeks after they've happened. Yeah. So you'll come into Restream one morning and you go, "Where's the buttons gone? They've changed everything." And they just do it. They don't tell you. And if you're a regular streamer, it can get. I mean, I'm now used to it, and I just fine, and on you go. But things like even what they've done in the last few weeks, like, I don't know if you know this, Tom. You know how you can change your default color. I don't know if you know this. Top right hand side, you can click your color, but now you can actually have multiple setups for multiple streams. So if I click this, I've never done this live, so this could all go to hell, right? If I click this button, what happens? Bang, right? We go into my other show. Look, automatically. So that's the Apollo show, the music show. Whereas, and then all I need to do to come back to Artifact is do that. Now they haven't even announced that. They haven't even announced it, but it works. And this is the sort of thing that seems to keep happening. So I quite enjoy Restream because I've got to know all the team. Tom, they call me a Restream influencer now. Apparently, apparently I'm I don't know what that means, but I'm a Restream influencer. Yeah. They sent me a mug. They sent me a mug with Restream on it. I don't know where it is. Where is it? Oh, I've lost it. That didn't last very long. But anyway, they sent me a mug. But nevertheless, if you are out there and you're thinking about, what's the best, just do one. Just choose one. We both use Restream just now. I think that's just a coincidence, but it does work most of the time. Unless some numpty's internet is working, he's using his phone. But so that's that. So back to content, Tom. How do you choose the content for your stream? Do you use Topic Mojo or something like it, or what's your habits in that respect?
My habits. So, I run my weekly show called Content and Cocktail down on a Thursday evening, and pour myself a drink and basically spend an hour talking about different aspects of video production. Now, because I come from a TV background, my as well, I need a formatted show, because formatted shows are repeatable, they're easy to do, and I can keep the party going because I know what I've got to do. I know that every Thursday, 7 o'clock, I turn up and I follow the same. So it starts. I have this little. I mean, I've talked about this ad nauseum, but this is a cocktail book that my grandfather gave me, and it is his that he had. It says Neil Madras 1945. It's a war standard issue cocktail, which I love. You know, it's kind of, as I said before, it's, you know, clearly, you know, you've got to beat fascism in a number of different ways, and if it whilst holding a very, very strong drink in one hand, then surely that's a win.
I love that. I love it.
So I started out by doing moving through 100 cocktails, a cocktail at a time, a cocktail a week. So we reached, we've done all of them over the last, and so, I mean, some of them are barely, and some of them are kind of probably going to make me go blind if I have more than one. It provided a structure. So all I did with this is I chose a cocktail, and that was my sort of bit of business, as it were. So, you know, if I'm doing the lot of lose my train of thought, I can just have a sip whilst I gather my thoughts. But in terms of the actual, I effectively have about 10, 11 cores, which I will cycle through on a sort of 2.5 month ish basis, because they and I can come at each 10 or 11 topics in a slightly different way. But these are the topics which people want help with. They sort of break down into 4 main areas of kind of the sort of the mindset of content creation, the strategic thinking that goes around it, the tech and the kind of skills, and then you've got the story, which is another part of this process. So we talk about one aspect of that kind of on a loop. And so as we progress through the year, you will get, you know, every 10 weeks, you'll be back around to the same topic, but from a slightly different perspective, because you can't, the nature of it, you can't keep on, you know, trying to do something new and different every time is completely, you know, that makes things very difficult for you. But also, people don't want it, because not everybody tune into every video, every live. You'll always be, that's the main themes that are important. They're important, but important to my business as well.
Yes, I mean, it's an interesting one, that, because what I've done, and I mean, there are apps out there that will help you with this if you're looking for content structure and what people are looking for. So if you type into one of these apps, and the one I happen to use is Topic Mojo, it's 50 quid a year or something. No, it's 50 quid forever, isn't it? It's a lifetime. It doesn't matter. But if you type into that, you know,
that's the one I've just started using.
It's very good. I mean, it really works. And what you do with that is you type in, like for me, I type in storytelling, pretty obvious. Yeah. And then it goes through all the different platforms, literally about 40 platforms, and it analyzes very quickly what people are searching for with the word storytelling in it. And what I discovered quite early on, Tom, and this is what I'm moving towards with my show, is that there are, a bit like video making actually, there are only a handful of key questions that people ask about storytelling. And the one at the top is, what are the stages of storytelling? Then how do you tell a story? How do you structure a story? What makes a good story? You know, they're all very obvious. And but I'm going to be focused on that, I think, because I do believe in what I'm doing here. I do believe that stories can change the world, you know, and I do think it's important. And I think the COVID situation has proven that, you know, the faults in the machine are there, and a lot of that could be helped with storytelling. So I'm absolutely determined to continue going with this, but I am going to be focusing a bit more on those topics. But the other thing that I found interesting, I mean, I've had a guest on more than half of my shows, and that's also been interesting because, one, I've learned a lot from my guests. I mean, it's terrific having a guest on. It's obviously good for you know, audience numbers and all the rest of it as well. But nevertheless, I think guests also quite like a clear. Well, you've been on. You tell me. You know, a clear structure that says, right, Scott will talk. The guest will come on. Scott will say thank you and talk about what's happening next week. And in the middle, it's a chat around the fireplace. It's not meant to be a lecture or a, you know, it's not. I mean, absolutely not. It's interesting, isn't it? It's interesting, and I'm excited to see where a lot of the video stuff goes, because the other thing. Sorry, I'm rambling slightly, but the other thing that I get feedback on, and I've had this very recently from an important client of mine who commissioned me to make 10 movies recently. So I mean, they're a very important client. He said to me, "Can't do the 45-minute or the hour shows, Scott. I want 4 minutes." And you're like, really?
Yeah.
Now, I respect him. He's a good guy, and I've got no issue with that. But the guy is a good guy. He's a fantastic guy. But what are your thoughts on that? Because we both make long form videos and the occasional short form. But what do you think about that?
Well, I mean, this is a situation. We can look to the numbers, and the stats don't lie. People like long form videos.
Yeah.
If generally speaking, if you go, so if I was to go on, let's quickly on the front, go on incognito and see what the recommended videos on YouTube are. The average, sort of have a quick look and see what the average length of the recommended video YouTube are. Whilst my internet kind of connects like
Chugs
it's
along.
19. That's, I agree.
You having to go through all the nonsense at the start. Yeah.
16 minutes, 18 minutes, 59 minutes, 42 minutes, 5 minutes 30, 11. So the trending videos, Dora Papers, 42 minutes.
Yes.
I thought the Schmidt People Mover was in 5 minutes 30. People Mover is, but
no idea.
Yes,
yeah.
But a lot of the videos here, so 31 minutes, 20 minutes, 90. If the audience is there, and if the audience is right, and if the content is good, people will sit and watch. Generally speaking, the average view time on YouTube is for around 35% of any given video, and that doesn't matter whether your video is an hour long or a minute long. People will watch on average about 35 to 40% of it. So that is people watching, the right people watching 35% of a 20-minute video than watching 35% of a kind of a 2-minute video. Oh, that's an interesting question.
That's an interesting question. Why would I do video content when audible content is the growth area? I don't know that's true. Is that true?
I think that's sounds like is a growth area.
It is a growth area.
But whether it's the growth area, say it's absolutely a growth area. But why can't you do both? Can't you create video content, strip the audio, but use good recording equipment, strip the audio out, and have audio content as well as video?
Yeah, well, it is a neat question. I mean, I don't think Clubhouse is doing as well as I thought it was going to do. It was everywhere for a while, and it's certainly gone a lot quieter now. But podcasts are growing at a fantastic rate, and they are growing faster than YouTube. And what I'm doing, I think this is Graham. It's a really good question, Graham. Sorry, your name's not coming up for some reason on LinkedIn. But what I'm doing is I am podcastizing all my vlogs, because I think you need to use as much as you can. But I don't know the answer to that, and I don't know. I mean, there is mixed signals coming from the platforms. I mean, I know that Instagram have now basically said that they don't want pictures anymore; they want video. And Instagram is a huge growth platform. Clubhouse isn't growing the way it was growing. But then again, you've got LinkedIn Stories being a disaster and being taken down. So I think it's I don't know the answer to that. And I mean, I've seen contradictory data, if I'm honest. Graham, I think it's Graham.
I would
do both.
I would, I think you can. I think it's possible to do both, and I agree. Do video content and audible content is the growth area. I think it's because if it's about it's partly about visibility. I mean, there's some psychology at work here, I think, and I think we have kind of, if people can see your face, they're more likely to, it's an easier way to build rapport with an audience. So I would say that you have to consider all this different content, and it's it's exhausting as business owners. We're being told you got to do your podcast, your live videos, you got to do your pre-recorded videos. Oh, don't forget you got to write your book, your blog, and you've got to be doing speaking. And before you know it, you're thinking, well, when have I got time to actually do my job? So if you can structure out your content creation process in a way that means that you can take whole carcasses and butcher them up to create your audio content and your video, you get all the growth benefits of video alongside the other stuff. So I think you do video content because you can take the audio out of it, and you can shoot and end up with everything. You can as Boris cake and eat it.
Let's not talk about Boris. Let's not talk about Boris. Oh, did you see him on the news this morning? Oh God. Anyway,
I just don't, Scott.
He should do podcasts. He shouldn't do video. No, we agree on this. I know we do, but anyway. But again, let continuing down that theme. And Andy's just said, Joe Rogan, the world's top vlogger and podcaster, does both. Some of my favorites do both as well. So it does seem to be a trend. But the other thing that I'd be interested in what you think. I mean, one of the things, I don't think it was a mistake I made, but it was a bloody hard lesson. And that was, I started off this game making pre-recorded video. My God, that's hard work. I mean, it is so much more difficult. Oh, I mean, it's so much more difficult than doing live. I don't think people appreciate that. I mean, making a 3-minute video will take you at least 2 or 3 hours, to make it, unless you're very lucky. Because you've got to get it absolutely right. You've got to, you've got your B-roll and your music, and you've got to think about the precision of it. And it's a different experience. I know that's your old game, mate. I know that's what you know much more about that than I do. But I still think there's a place for pre-recorded material, I have to say. And I think companies, certainly, I mean, I've only done, and it's awful, I've done about 15 keynotes this year in total. I used to do that every 2 or 3 months. I mean, that's how much the market has collapsed. But in those keynotes, I mean, probably half of those keynotes were pre-records and the other half were live. And the pre-recorded ones, the public love them. The feedback is wow, because you can do wacky things. You can do funny things and different things, and you can do more. You can do a certain amount live, like Tom and I do all the time, but you can do more. So I think it's going to be a blend of both, mate. I don't know what you think about that, but certainly the YouTube world, yeah. I mean, YouTube is full of people doing pre-record.
And it has to. I think the way it goes, particularly for us as business owners, is that you really high value kind of deep dive content with your pre-record stuff, which can take, so you might only be releasing a video a month, but that one video is a full meal. If somebody tunes in to watch that, they're going to get something financial and valuable. So if you're taking that approach, then actually, if you think, well, actually 12 long researched, well created videos are probably going to be more valuable than sort of a whole bunch of kind of shorter videos. Having said that, I've got 365 reels that I've got ready and waiting that I recorded and edited. which is I've decided to hold on to them until, and I was going to start running it now, but I'm starting a content plan for 2022 all set out. So
Yes.
myself, why don't I make it easy for myself and actually just start it from January and sort of throughout the year. So I'm sort of keeping my pound on that. But those pre-records were actually very easy to do because they're very tightly formatted. They're a minute each. It's a daily quick. So it's but that's designed for, that's a traffic generator.
And you're going to put that on YouTube, are you?
Necessarily done YouTube, Reels, and Facebook. So it's going to go, and LinkedIn. So it's going to go to five platforms every day,
right?
And it's just designed to be a kind of a top of mind thing. So I will have a daily presence there, but it's also food for my Facebook group.
Yes,
but at the same time, I'm planning a nice chunky series, as a kind of something which will answer and help people with the questions they've got. So, it could be some, how do we measure success with our video content? So it could be a 30-minute video about metrics and a measurement, which sound really boring. I'm aware of that, but it's a really important topic, and there'll be people in sort of marketing departments who will go, "Oh, actually, you know what?" So it'll be full of information. It'll be packed with kind of but I'm not having to do that every week. Doing it, one slice a month.
Yes, I think that
so that's the kind of
I mean, I'm doing something quite similar, Tom, because I mean, I've been asked by a number of people. I mean, the whole concept of Artifact is about using things to help you tell stories, and one of the things is of course stories. And I was asking all my guests to bring an artifact, you with your little book or whatever, and people enjoyed that. But now I'm asking, and I'm going to ask you this in a minute, what is your favorite story? What is your favorite book? What is your favorite poem? What is your favorite film script? Because I want to bring that depth into it. And I think it was interesting. I don't know if you watched my show last week, but the lady who was on last week uses stories as therapy, as tools for therapy. Yeah. She actually gives descriptions to people of things to read. And I thought that's quite a nice idea. It's a nice idea. And she's a journalist, and obviously that's something she's very good at. But I had been thinking, just coincidentally, of a similar, I'm not getting into therapy or anything, but I am interested in getting behind people, because my audience is, comms people, organizational design people, writers, authors, poets. And I think sharing what you're reading or what your favorite stories are is actually quite a good idea. I don't know what you think about it, but I'm quite taken with it, because I think it will build a library, if you like, of, you'll get the numpties who say, "Oh, it's War and Peace." They've never read it, and they just think it's the thing they should say. Well, I tried to read it. I never got anywhere near the end of it, but so I think having these, and it's right back to something you said near the beginning, having a structure, even if it's a loose structure, helps the show every week, doesn't it? It really does help. And I mean, if I have and I've had this issue where a guest has had a problem or let me down or whatever, I can do a show on a topic in a chapter. I can talk about anything about storytelling for 40 minutes and people will get something out of it. I don't like doing that, but you've got to learn to do that if you're going to go live. You've got to learn to be able to do it. You've got to. So, I mean, we've nearly done an hour, Tom. We need to talk about science fiction before yeah. One of the things that Tom and I should do one of these days is do a science fiction show. I tell you, we should do a broadcast, Tom and Scott's sci-fi show, because we've both got a passion for science fiction.
I love it.
Hey, mate, people would tune in because we can talk rubbish about this for hours. But right, let's talk about two big events, any site, right? Right, I'm going to be brutal. Star Wars is never an event, right? But Dune,
Not
Dune, garbage. But Dune and Foundation are events, absolutely events. What do you think of the new Foundation series on Apple TV?
I will take you back to GCSE English when we had to do comparative book studies, and I chose as book I was writing about Foundation. My English author got really snotty and said, "Oh, you can't do that." I was like, "Well, listen, matey."
Yeah,
you said I could choose. I did it, and he was like, "Oh, I didn't realise it was good." I was like, "Well, there we go, you stupid idiot."
Yes, exactly.
I was, I loved Foundation as I've always enjoyed science fiction. I've always enjoyed books and poetry in general, but I've always had a sort of a special place in my heart for sci-fi, and the first Foundation books, they're such sort of slight books. You can kind of sit there and devour them in a few hours. But the writing is pleasingly brisk, and the stories are pleasingly big, but the writing quality is good as well. So you're actually disarming the simple style, and Asimov is a real master of kind of quite spare storytelling, where you cover big events in a sort of in a sort of 120 page, which comes from this fact that he was writing for kind of Strange Tales and other kind of other sort of sci-fi magazines of the 50s. So the kind of, I think the form is great, because it's hard not to love that kind of, when you look at some of the sci-fi. I mean, Dune is the other end of the spectrum. Dune is kind of your sort of mega doorstep, where if you're looking for hyper descriptive sections and sort of lots of internal monologue, then you go to Frank Herbert. But when I saw that the number of attempts to get Foundation to the screen over the decades, and what I love is that now there are people in positions of commissioning authority who read this stuff growing up, who are now in a position where they can commission things to happen. So, for example, I also quite enjoy sort of doorstop fantasy novels, like as a kid growing up, and it's so on. Oh, for fuck's sake!
Can still hear you.
Oh, sorry. I'm so sorry.
You fiddle about with that, and I'll talk about it in a minute. On you go, mate.
So sorry, everybody.
I can hear you. We can't see you. We can hear you though. We can hear you. Oh, you're back. You're back.
Sorry. My camera.
I think the thing there is right, because you've got Asimov, Bradbury, Heinlein, the grandfathers of sci-fi, who emerged from the pulp sci-fi of the 50s, because there's a lot of bad sci-fi from the 1950s and the 40s even. There's a lot of bad stuff, but I was very similar to you. I devoured Asimov, and I really liked Bradbury, actually. And I still love, and there's not enough of his stuff has been made into movies, and it's about time a lot more were. And Robert Heinlein's the same. I mean, we've had some bits and pieces of his work, but again, there's such a rich vein of storytelling there. But when I watched the Apple thing, a lot of people are saying it's really serious. Well, it is. It's bloody serious. It's not meant to be like Star Wars with Muppets in space. It's not meant to be like that. It's thoughtful. And I think some of the characters will develop, and certainly I'm not sure about the Emperor characters. I'm not sure about them yet. I think the guy, the day one, the main one, he's a bit serious. He's a bit like, a bit quite comedic. But I'm enjoying it, but I think you're getting some abuse here, mate. It serves you right. But I think
sorry, everybody.
Don't be daft. This is another thing. Oh no, we should have a show about political correctness sometime. But that's another subject. But the other thing, I mean, Joe, who's a regular and a lovely person, friend of mine, is a big Doctor Who fan. And again, you know, I love it when you get, you know, because that's short, snappy. And when Doctor Who works, and I don't think it's worked for a few years, to be honest, but when it does work, I think it's extraordinary. I mean, the David Tennant Doctor Who's and they were exceptional, absolutely exceptional. But for me, sci-fi is the story of change, you know. And when you read, particularly Asimov in this context, he was trying to predict in hundreds of stories, literally hundreds of stories, as was Heinlein and Bradbury, what the future would be like. And you know what? They didn't always get it right, but they didn't always get it wrong either, you know. So I like that, and it's why I'm drawn to, like, one of my favorite writers is Ian Banks, you know, Ian M. Banks, as he calls himself, with the culture novels. And again, with the culture novels, it's like, you know, listening to Ursula Le Guin talking about sexuality, and she's writing that in the 50s. You know, so these guys are at the edge, and I love it. And I think the new Apple thing, Tom, basically, I think it's great. And I think the moaning minis are the Star Wars fans who like Muppets in Space. It's the Muppets in Space Brigade. They can't cope with it unless there's Darth Vader or some wee puppet. You know, I'm really not a fan of Star Wars. I can't be doing it.
I think what people forget is that Star Wars isn't sci-fi. Star Wars is fantasy. Star Wars comes from the out of George Lucas's love of 30s and 40s kind of serialized adventure fiction, and so he's looking at things like John Carter of Mars, so kind of those kind of pulp fiction of the late 19th, early 20s, which is, you know, some of it is amazing science fiction, but a lot of it is just kind of is space opera. And it's, you know, you've got the Lensman stuff, you've got all these things which aren't, they are fantasy. And I think I always had a problem with describing Star Wars as science fiction, because it's basically knights, and it's kind of knights, and so I've never thought of it as fantasy, as sci-fi. I've always thought of it as fantasy, but with kind of spaceships, but instead of horses. Speaking of fantasy, we watched The Green Knight the other night, the other day. It is absolutely simple. Really? It's on Amazon Prime. Absolutely, but it is a piece of kind of it's got an awful, so it's quite like Excalibur in as much that it's kind of rich in allegory, and it's quite weird and wonderful. But Dev Patel plays Sir Gawain, and wonderful. I
love Excalibur. Excalibur's a masterpiece. I love it. I still love it to this day.
You'll love The Green Knight.
Right. Okay. But we're getting some questions here. Andy's asking us about you know, the big tech guys. They're all big sci-fi fans. What do we think about their current narratives? Well, I did a show about this once, and the reason why we need to go to Mars, we need to go to Mars, not because of the stuff that Musk talks about. We need to go to Mars because of the explosion of interest it will create in all matters scientific. Because if we don't, we're going to have more of this COVID nonsense where you get all these Facebook junkies telling us that they know more than the scientists about viruses. We've got to educate people, and to do that, we've got to put a woman on the moon, and we've got to go to Mars, because it will explode like it did in the 70s, the 60s and the 70s. The people that are like Bezos and co, they came from that sci-fi and science real world, and that's why I think we should be going. So they're not, these guys, good for them. I'm not that interested in them really, but nevertheless, what they're doing, keep going, guys, because I think it's going to save the planet. I think it's essential. But you can build more council houses. That doesn't cut it, that argument. You can build more hospitals. Doesn't cut it. Doesn't cut it in the long term. Absolutely doesn't cut it. We'll get flat Marsers.
Flat Marsers. You know, that's so cool. Yeah, I've had because a falling out with somebody who was genuine flat earther. It was weird. I was like, you're absolutely nuts. It's like, just
Don't swear again now. You nearly swore again there, Tom. Now you get me into trouble.
hey, that second one would have been a well justified one. No, gosh, I feel like I'm on the
Anyway,
BBC.
we need to wrap this up, mate. We've gone over an hour. So, the couple of people asking where they can get hold of you, Tom, if they wanted to have a look at your Facebook group or whatever. Where can people get hold of you, mate? Where's the best place?
Okay, so there's got a few things going on. I have got my free Facebook group, which is very creative. Grow your business with video with Tom Stanhope, because
Yeah.
With emphasis on the moron. Yes, grow your business with video with Tom Stanhope. I've also got we're in the last 24 hours of I launched my course last week, and so we've got our second cohort of Video Academy, which is basics to kind of to mastery course for people who want to do better at video, use pre-recorded and live business. So that is closing in 24 hours, which is quite exciting. I'm off to Canada with one of the clients to go and film with them. So that's it. So we have some exciting stuff going on. But yeah, or you can just come and catch me on a Thursday evening at 7:00.
And it's a jolly good show.
Yes.
The best bit about Tom's live show is if he has 3 cocktails, hey, and the fun begins.
Mostly, I tend to now, but sometimes if
so
it's been
funny.
a long week,
so funny. So the other thing that's coming soon, and Tom and I are going to do a little bit of work together. We're probably going to link up a little bit with my storytelling stuff and his video stuff. So we're looking at how we can be associates of one another and how we can work together. So you'll see that coming soon as well, because it's quite exciting. A lot of that work, and I'm definitely keen to grow that relationship, as you know, Tom. So we'll need to do that. So, Tom, it's been brilliant. As always, your technology sucks, mate. You need to go and buy all these expensive equipment.
Don't blame me. Blame Virgin. We've got to. It's Richard Branson.
But see, if you knew what you were doing, you would have 15 different internet providers coming into your house. Yeah, via satellite. Have you seen all the rubbish on LinkedIn? What lessons did we learn from Facebook going down? Oh, God, have people got no bloody creativity? Honestly, it just does my head in.
It's inevitable. I've set it.
Anyway.
Discord. Yeah.
Anyway. So, Tom, thank you very much for being on the show. Nadu, we'll have you back again, mate, and I'll see you next week sometime. All right? Yeah, maybe drop me a line one day when your tech's working, mate. That would be good. That'd be good.
Who knows? It might work.
See you later. Thanks very much. Well, everybody, I hope you enjoyed listening to me and Tom talking nonsense for an hour, but I think it was fitting that we did that today, because it is quite a big moment for me. I'm feeling quite happy about it, and Tom has helped me, because before lockdown, we were working together making videos. Some of my early videos you've seen, no doubt, I made with Tom. And of course, when that all fell apart, then my world all fell apart. It was natural that we get into these areas, and it feels quite natural that we're coming together today. So I hope you enjoyed that. So next week, it's actually a pre-recorded show next week, which I've already recorded, and I've got a guy called Matt Grawich coming on. Now, Matt is a professor. He's based in the United States, and his speciality is evidence and decision making, and why we have this conflict about facts and storytelling. And we met online we're both we follow some quite similar of the luminaries in the sort of the Sam Harrises and the people like that are out there that are talking about this stuff. And I contacted Matt and I said, "Look, Matt, would you fancy coming on my show?" And he was delighted to come on. So we've got I guess our fourth professor I've got on next week. So I'm quite looking forward to that. So we talk about quite a lot of things, but we talk about decision making and facts, and we talk about the relationship between evidence and story. So it'll sit quite nicely with the Rob Breener show that I did a few weeks ago about how, Rob's probably more cynical about story than Matt is, but then if you juxtaposition that with the Robin Dunbar show that I had, I think there's quite a nice, the three professors, I'll need to come up with some way of theming that and put it out onto the socials. So thank you very much for tuning in. This was Artifact Live with me, Scott MacArthur, and that was my 50th show. Just to say, I really appreciate you tuning in every week, everybody. It's something I know, and Tom did tell me this would happen. It's something I really look forward to now, and it's not a chore at all once you get into the swing of things. So if you're thinking about going live with video, do it. It's something it's really worth trying. So good afternoon, and I'll see you next week. My name is Scott MacArthur.